Hello and welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, part of the Believe Podcast Network. My name is Tyler, and on today's episode, we're going to get away from going game by game through the series that just happened against the Royals and even the Diamondbacks game last night, which, in my opinion, was potentially the most impressive win of the Orioles season. Battling against a good starter like Zach Gallen, being patient, putting up 5 runs, and then Zach Eflin pitching really well. Unfortunately, has some injury stuff we might be worried about, so not all positive there, but we're going to get away from going game by game today, and I think go a little broader. We're 11 games in now. I was going to record this yesterday before the Diamondback series started. I'm kind of glad I didn't because it made me feel a little bit better about things. But I was going to record it yesterday. It didn't happen, so I'm recording it today. And I just want to go, through these first 10, 11 games now, how I'm feeling, how the vibes are, I think, amongst Orioles faithful right now, and why, as I said in my Camden chat column yesterday, it's not too early to be worried about the Orioles. I think it's okay to have concerns. I don't think it's okay to panic outright about these Orioles. They're 5-6. This is not some disaster start to the season. We're not in Braves territory where the bottom's kind of fallen out a little bit and it's a lot of games to make up. The Orioles are right in the thick of things. The Orioles are still well within reach of making the playoffs, of course, winning the AL East, winning the American League, because as we've sort of expected coming into the year, the American League is not some juggernaut, league. It's very winnable. So I think we need to stop short of any sort of panic there, but I do think there are legitimate concerns that we should step back and assess through the first 10 games, understanding that the context of that matters, right? 10 games out of a 162 game season, 11 games now out of 162 game season is very small. Um, the Orioles could have been 0-11 and still had a chance to make the playoffs. They could be 11-0 and things could fall apart. Remember that Rays series or season a couple years ago? They got off to a really hot start and the Orioles ended up winning the division ahead of them. But I think there are reasons to be concerned about it. We'll get into that. Of course, before we do that, housekeeping, as always, go to believe.com, BLEAV.com. Check out our show, check out other shows. There might be a football podcast, a soccer podcast, an entertainment show podcast that you care about on Believe. Go to believe.com and support that show as well. And for us in particular, subscribe to us. If this is the first time you're hearing us and you like what you hear, subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get it. We're also on YouTube where you can go look at the podcast, get a visual there. Subscribe to us there. It's all free and it just really helps us reach other people. So please do that. And occasionally Believe hooks us up with sponsors. No sponsor on this week's episode for the first time in a while, but if you guys keep watching, keep listening, keep thumbsing it up, keep leaving comments, we'll get those sponsors back. So really just go support the show and we would really appreciate it. So back to the topic at hand. As I said, at CamdenChat.com, which I think some of you probably have found this show from Camden Chat, from me writing over there. If you haven't and you've done it the reverse way, please go to CamdenChat.com. It's, in my opinion, it's the best Orioles blog out there. So go check us out, support us by reading, joining the community there. And the topic I wrote about yesterday was, the title of the article was, "It's not too early to be worried about the Orioles." And I basically explained that, the Orioles came into the season with World Series aspirations. I don't think those aspirations have whittled away necessarily, but I think we also had expectations that this was going to be a team that was led by its offense being basically a juggernaut amongst the top 2, 3 offenses in the league. I think alongside, the Dodgers, maybe the Yankees, something like that. And that's not quite happening. I think we expected the starting pitching to be not exactly a strength, but competent and keep the Orioles in the game. And I think that is happening lately. It's happening more now than it was the first 5, 6 games of the season, but it's been, I think, below average, which is not ideal. And then the bullpen, I think, has been unquestionably good. I really just CNL Perez has been a disaster. Everybody else has been pretty solid, but they've really been a non-entity because the Orioles have been losing games by a ton or winning games by a ton, and really no in between. And at that point, you can throw a bunch of AAA guys up there, and it's not really going to matter in terms of the bullpen. These are, these guys can defend a 7-run lead. Can they defend a 3-run lead, a 2-run lead? We don't know because the Orioles are the only team in Major League Baseball that does not have a save opportunity yet on the season. Again, we're only 11 games in, but that's enough time for there to be a 3-run win, and the Orioles just haven't done that. So going kind of through this bit by bit, I want to talk about the offense first. So the Orioles are, I think, in most analysis of them. Their offense has been a top 10 offense so far. They're top 10 in runs scored, top 10 in batting average, top 10 in on base percentage, WRC plus. They're a good offense. They're not as good as they were early in 2024 when like Gunnar was playing like an MVP, Adley was hitting really well. It was just really clicking. They're not quite to that level, but they've been good. The issue is that, first of all, it's not quite juggernaut level. It's not top two and three. Top 10, the difference between top 10 and top two and three is pretty significant. That's an issue there. And the other issue is the distribution of the output. So prior to last night's game, they had scored two or fewer runs in 5 of their 10 games. In 4 other games, they'd scored 8 or more runs. And they had just one middling game, which is like, scoring 3, 4, 5 runs. They hadn't done that. They'd done that once prior to last night. Last night they scored 5 runs, which is great. Last night was like that's why I say last night was like the most complete win of the season. They scored five, pitching staff allowed one. Their starter went 6 strong. The bullpen was great for 3 innings. Like that was a complete, easy to watch game if you could stay up until midnight and watch the whole game. Which is a whole nother thing. The West Coast exists. You gotta play by their rules, but that is tough as an East Coast fan to watch. The Orioles when they're in Arizona, San Diego, Seattle, Sacramento this year. That's always tough. But anyway, that was if you got to watch it, the Orioles' most complete win, repeatable type of win. Like that's a win you can have that win. You can score 5 runs, allow one, allow a couple more. You're still gonna win the game. That was their most felt like their most repeatable type of win, and that's more of what you want to see from a team that's gonna go deep into the postseason. They hadn't had any of those this year. The only time they scored 3, 4, or 5 runs was a loss to the Red Sox when they allowed 8 runs. Again, you'd like to see the pitching staff do better, but the 4 or 5 run delineation is kind of like the line there. Right? I've talked about this on previous podcasts where think about an ERA. Think about like what makes a good pitcher or an acceptable pitcher. It's sort of a 5.5 ERA, below a 4.5 ERA. Below 4.5, it's like, okay, that's a big league pitcher. He can get hitters out. Talking about starters here. They can get hitters out there. You feel good giving them the ball for 6 innings. Like, yeah, they're going to give up 3 runs, but like, whatever. 3 runs in 6 innings is pretty good. That's a quality start, right? No, they're not going to win Cy Youngs, but you feel good about that. Now, a 4.7 ERA, 5 ERA, like, we need to find somebody better than that. And so scoring 5 runs or more, you're going to win baseball games. Scoring less than 5 runs, you're not really going to win baseball games. And so that kind of computes what the Orioles are seeing so far this year is when they're scoring 5 runs or more, they're winning games. When they're scoring less than 5 runs, they're not winning games. But the way the Orioles have produced there has made the pitching staff kind of irrelevant because they're either scoring a ton or they're not scoring at all. And at that point, like, yeah, you'd love to have an ace that gets you one of those 7 shutout inning performances. The Orioles don't have that really right now. So it's sort of making your pitching staff irrelevant, which is problematic. And like I said earlier, because the Orioles were projected as a much better offense than what they've been so far, it's sort of making everything break a little bit there. They're a top 10 offense rather than a top 2 or 3 offense. Now, talking about the pitching staff, prior to last night when Zach Eflin was good, the starting staff has been subpar. They had a 5.62 ERA, which was 26th in MLB through action on Sunday. Opponents rating 310 against them, and they had a cumulative whip of 1.49. All of those metrics are bad. But the sorts of starts they were giving were, in my estimation, good enough, or at least about what you expected from this staff. Again, not that the ERA is going to compute out to be very good, but that's kind of what you expected from them. So Cade Povich gave up 4 runs over 6 innings on Sunday. Tomo Sagano allowed 1 run over 5 and a third innings on Saturday. Dean Kramer, 3 runs. 2 of them were earned in 4.1 innings on Friday. And then Zach Eflin, 6 innings, 3 runs against the Red Sox on Wednesday. The Orioles won just one of those games. And those are, look, those aren't great stat lines from the pitchers, but those are not implosions either. Those are not like comically bad pitching performances. Those are competent pitching performances that keeps your team in the game, and that's how the Orioles are built. So don't get mad at the pitchers. Don't get mad at Brandon Hyde. Like that is how the Orioles are built. Is hey starters, give us a chance as a lineup to score a bunch of runs, to score 5 and 6 runs, and win the game for you. The pitching staff for the last week has held up their end of the bargain, and the Orioles have not. They lost series to the Red Sox. They lost a series to the Royals. Now, yesterday was a much different story, much better. But that was really it. Was like the starters were kind of holding up their end of the bargain. Again, The offense has been better than the pitching staff than the starting pitching has been. But in terms of expectations, I think the starting has been about what you expect, maybe slightly below, and the hitting has been boom or bust, and the overall outcome is, I think, slightly below. And the boom or bust is problematic, whereas the pitching staff has been slightly more consistent. And that's where and also, it's just the starters are what they are. Like they don't have the ace on the staff. Eflin is a nice mid-rotation pitcher that the Orioles have to use as a starter. Grayson Rodriguez, when he comes back, look, I think Grayson Rodriguez is a nice, talented player. He's been productive for the Orioles, but he's not. He has never pitched like an ace apart from one off or a couple of starts in a row where he does really well. Grayson Rodriguez produces like a mid-rotation pitcher, which is great, which is valuable. The Orioles are not paying a premium for Grayson Rodriguez because he's homegrown. There's tons of value in home growing a four starter, a three starter that you don't have to go pay $15 million for because that's what the Orioles have done every offseason is go pay a dude 15 million bucks to eat innings as their three, four, or five dude. They don't have to do that with Grayson Rodriguez, which is great. Kyle Bradish is an ace when he's healthy, but asking him to be that in 2025 when he's recovering from Tommy John surgery, and if he comes back, isn't going to be till late in the year, that's too much. The Orioles don't have the guy on the staff. They'll be better once Grayson's back. Maybe they'll be better once, Brandon Young comes up, when Chase McDermott's better. Maybe Cade Povich grows into his own a little bit. Maybe Trevor Rogers can turn into something, but none of them are the ace type pitcher. So you have to deal with what the tools at your disposal, and what the Orioles pitching staff has as its disposal is an average set of tools, maybe slightly below average. And they are performing about as well as you could have expected, especially when you pair it with a bullpen that has been very, very good. Gregory Soto, really good. Sir Anthony Dominguez, good. Uh, uh, Brian Baker, really good. Like these are guys that were a little bit Baker in particular, didn't even know he was going to make the team, has been arguably their best relief pitcher this season. He's been really, really good. I think the guys you worry about in the bullpen are Felix Bautista right now and Cionel Perez. Bautista pitched last night, did pretty well. He's made 3 appearances now. One of them was not so good, two pretty good. And then Cionel Perez has been pretty much a disaster, but he has historically been pretty bad in April. And I think the Orioles hopefully are just thinking he needs to kind of ease his way into the season a little bit or something. But he's out of options. He's left-handed in a bullpen that's already got Keegan Aiken and Gregory Soto, and then Luis Gonzalez down in AAA, and then they just traded for a guy from the Brewers that's left-handed, I believe. So Perez is, he's walking on eggshells a little bit here. He's got to pick it up if he wants to stick around. But the bullpen, I think, been better than you could have expected. I think we expected depth from the bullpen, which they've given you, but they've also given you quality across the board. Now, they haven't really been tested. Like I said, they've got no save opportunities. They're not really pitching in a ton of close games. Doors are I've either been up a lot or down a lot. So, it's a little easier to go into those situations where you can kind of throw strikes and take chances and not worry about the long ball too much. Um, but all things considered, I think the pitching as a whole has been about what you expect, even if it's because the starters have been below average, the bullpen has been above average. The offense is where things have been a little bit meh. And that's not because of individual performances. That's just the output that they've gotten. They haven't gotten as many home runs as I think they hoped. Adley was really good right away, then slowed down a little bit. Now he looked really good last night. And of course, Gunnar Henderson is the biggest X factor of all, which is didn't play the first two series, looked really bad in Kansas City, and then the first game in Arizona looked like Gunnar Henderson. Taking an extra base, stealing bases, creating offense. And eventually, I think they would love for him to move down to the two, bump everybody down one. Hopefully, Jackson Holliday can become that leadoff hitter, which he's looked better. But again, there's not a ton of thump in the Holliday stuff right now. He's getting on base, he's getting hits, he's still striking out a lot. He's not walking very much. Like there's still some questions I have for Jackson Holliday, but in terms of rookie year to sophomore year, much better from Jackson Holliday. And that's why I just want to say, like, there's reason to be optimistic for this team despite some inconsistencies right now. It's Mullins hitting great, Jordan Westbrook looking great, Adley Rutschman in general looking back to normal. Jackson Holliday looks much better. Gunnar is Gunnar. Gunner's going to be fine. He's basically in spring training now, and you're going to have to deal with some ebbs and flows, I think, for April. But then once May hits, I think he's going to be cruising. And then in the rotation, I think Eflin, as long as he's not hurt, you're feeling good about Eflin. And now the injury stuff is concerning because he did it's what right shoulder discomfort. He had to go on the IL for that last year. Now it was just a short IL stint, so maybe it's not a big deal. But as long as he's healthy, you feel like at least good about him going out there every fifth day. Cade Povich, to me, I'm a Cade Povich guy. He's not been great this year. He's getting hit around a little bit, but he's not getting hit crazy hard. He's not giving up home runs. He's not walking guys. He's striking out guys at a decent rate. I think eventually Povich, some of these peripherals start to work out better for him. He's got a 1.34 FIP and a 2.97 xFIP. And so FIP basically just takes like fielding out of the equation. So it's all about, strikeouts, walks, home runs, things like and fly balls that are caught 99.9% of the time, you gotta you gotta account for the Jorge Mateo of it all, missing fly balls, and the Heston Kjerstad for that matter. We've had some outfield defense issues too, which I won't get into on here, but um, Povich he's doing a lot of the things on the peripheral that I think are going to turn into better ERAs, better outcomes. If he gives you 6 innings and 4 runs most times out, yeah, that ERA is not going to be super pretty. It's going to be over the 4.5 I was talking about. It's going to be, whatever that is. It's going to be 6 almost. I'm not gonna crazy complain about that. Yeah, you want it a little bit lower, but 4 runs over 6 innings, like the give and the take of the innings you're eating and the runs you're allowing, like that doesn't feel horrendous to me. Would love it to be 6 innings and 3 runs, but he feels so close to that. Povich, I'm optimistic about. Sugano looked much better in his start against the Royals. He was mixing pitches. He was ahead. He wasn't walking guys. And he looked better in the second half of his start against the Blue Jays too. So, before the hand cramps took him out. So we might be thinking about Sugano even differently. So I feel good about Sugano. Charlie Morton is the one where it's like he's loading up on strikeouts. He set the Orioles record for like 40-year-old strikeouts in a game or whatever, which is, great. It was 10, which is really impressive. And he's got 14.04 Ks per nine so far this year. And he's been a bit unlucky. His batting average on balls in play is almost 500, which is crazy. I think Povich has had a similar issue this year. Uh, but Morton's getting hit around a little bit too much for my taste. But you have to look at his recent years, and he's been a good pitcher. He's like a 4 ERA guy. So you have to think he gets better. Kyle Gibson comes back, he gets better. But all this is basically to say, like, I think the pieces are there for the Orioles rotation to be what we expected it to be, which is not to be a top 10 pitching staff. Maybe not even maybe a top 15. Probably not. More of like a 15 to 20 range type of pitching staff, starting staff, that is. Get through 6 innings, and you have to hand it to your bullpen, which, like we've seen so far, has been really, really productive, really, really good, really dependable, really deep from the left side and the right side. Like I think the Orioles bullpen is built well. A lot of it depends on if you feel good about Felix Bautista at this point. He's not throwing as hard as he was 2 years ago. Not that that's shocking, but it's worrisome. But if he even, at a diminished version, if you feel good about Batista, then I think you got to feel good about this bullpen. And that does make the rotation better because it lessens the workload on them a little bit. Um, it's just the offense. The offense has to find that next gear. And it's tough to say that to them because Gunner's just getting back. Colton Cowser's out. Um, you're hoping that some of the young guys like a Basayo and a Mayo come up at some point and make an impact. Like there's still pieces there that it's not totally fair to say, hey, you guys are doing good with these injuries, but we need a little bit more. It feels cruel to say that, but it's just the reality of it. And I think what's got people most, you know, antsy right now is that this isn't a new issue for the Orioles. If you look back at last year, we know from July on wasn't great. From July 1st on last year, they went 38 and 40. Add that to their 4 and 6 start here this year, now 5 and 6. They'd be 43 and 46 over the last 89 games, which that's not like some small bump in the road. That's not a 2 week, slump. That's half a season, over half a season of below average baseball. Again, it's not horrendous baseball. It's not, not major league quality. It's just not playoff team material. So you have to worry about that a little bit. And it's not like this year's team comes in and you say from a talent perspective they are better than 2024. I think the offense is comparable. You hope that the some of the younger guys make strides. I think you hope that Adley is back to his normal self. I think you hope Jordan Westburg is fully healed from his hand. I hope you think that Gunner's another MVP candidate year. All that's logical, but the talent hasn't really changed. I think you swap Anthony Santander out for Tyler O'Neill. Talent-wise, that doesn't feel like a huge change there. You do lose a switch hitter for just a righty, so maybe that's a negative, but about the same. The lineup's essentially the same. And also the other thing about the lineup being the same is the approach has not really changed except for last night. Last night they were very patient. They like whatever the scouting report they had on Zach Gallen was, it was pitch perfect. It was to a T. Moi, they were great. They did leave some runners on base in bad situations, but in general, really good approach there. Other than that, they've been kind of the same, very swing happy, relying on the home run. It wasn't working. At least last night showed me that they can pivot, adapt, and be, not so one dimensional. And the starting staff, you have to argue, is much worse this year. They don't have Corbin Burns. Grayson Rodriguez is hurt, although he was hurt at the end of last year. They don't have Kyle Bradish, although he was hurt last year as well. Um, they don't have Albert Suarez. He's hurt for a while now. Of course, that was sort of a out of nowhere X factor, but they don't have him. So you have to say the pitching staff, the starting staff in particular, is worse, and maybe the bullpen's better. So does the bullpen being better make up for how much worse the starting pitching staff is? Uh, Probably not. So you have to hope the pitching staff can get added to. You hope Grayson comes back and is good. You hope Bradish comes back at some point and is good. You hope they make a trade for somebody. I think they will. Will it be in Sandy Alcantara or will it be more of like a back end guy? You know, it's tough to get big names like that in the middle of the season without coughing up a ton. And we know Mike Elias doesn't like to do that, but I think it's pretty evident that this team needs it. They need the pitching staff to be average. They need to be a 15th ranked starting staff, and they need the bullpen to work, and they need the offense to pick up just a hair to be a top five offense instead of a top 10 offense. So that's why I say like this is not reason to panic. The elements are there for the Orioles to still be a 90 plus win team that makes a playoff run in an AL that is relatively weak. I think they can still do that. But this is not some new pattern. This is not overreacting to 10 games. This is based on a whole half of a summer plus an unimpressive 2 weeks that you start to say, all right, look, like this is supposed to be our core where we go win the thing. Like, let's not talk about 2026. We're talking about 2025. Let's go do something. And I know there's not a lot you can do at this point. There's not a lot you can do in early April to change this team. That's going to be more of a July situation. You just have to tread water right now and be maybe a little bit above 500 going into July or, mid-July all-star break, and things can happen. It just makes you think like, could they have done more in the offseason to go get Garrett Crochet, who is now going to be in Boston for the next 7 years or whatever? Um, it's not that a ton of big names on the pitching mound got moved that weren't free agents. You certainly don't feel bad about them not signing Blake Snell at this point on the IL. You wish Corbin Burns came back, but it didn't happen. You get it. He's in Arizona where he wants to be, and that's logical enough. But it's just like, could you have done a little bit more to secure up this pitching staff? And should you have moved Heston Kjerstad because he's been kind of wishy-washy this year? Could you have traded Kobe Mayo, who's not been great to start the year in Norfolk and wasn't great in the spring either? Like you start to think about those things. I don't know how much the sheen wears off of a prospect in such a short amount of time. You'd have to think not too much, but you never know. And is the opportunity to trade them now gone? Well, is July too far away for that to happen? Not trying to kick these guys out the door or anything, but there's some concerns there, of course. But yeah, I mean, look, this team still has talent. I still believe in them. I think I projected them to win 93 games this year. That feels a little bit worrisome now, being 5-6. But of course, it's early. They could go on a run here, be 10-6, then I'll be like, oh, well, 93, we're gonna blow past 93. That's no problem. A lot of things can happen. But just kind of making this podcast to say, like, if you are worried about the Orioles early, it's okay. I think you're right to be worried about them. If you're panicking, saying this team is garbage, Elias needs to go, Hyde needs to go, I think you've gone a little bit too far, had a few too many natty bows, and maybe sit down with a crab cake. And let me just throw out all the Baltimore, euphemisms right now. Just chill out a little bit. But that's how I'm feeling through 10 games. The weekend series, they lost 2 out of 3 in Kansas City. They've looked good. They looked good in this first game in Arizona. Hopefully Zach Eflin isn't hurt too bad. Hopefully he makes his next start. And if he needs to skip one start, that's cool. But let's try to avoid an IL stint if we can, because right now Zach Eflin is one of the most important players in this team. Like the pitching staff, I think is competent the way it is, but they can't lose Zach Eflin for very long and hope to get by. They're gonna have to make some dramatic changes if that happens. They're going to need to be more aggressive with the bullpen. They got to paper over what they've got because now Suarez is out. If Eflin's hurt, I don't know who starts the game. I don't know who does it. It could be a bullpen game that works for one turn through the order. Then you got to shuffle everybody, but they really can't absorb much more starting pitching losses at this point. So hopefully that does not happen. But I was encouraged by last night. I'm still concerned overall, but overall optimistic as well. This team can pull things together. We just have to see it. So that's about all I wanted to say on this episode. I appreciate you guys for kind of sitting through the rant. What do you all think about this? Are you panicked about the Orioles? Leave a comment on YouTube or on our Spotify. You can also reach out to us on social media. We're on Blue Sky and Twitter at the Warehouse Pod. So check us out there. Give us a follow if you're not. And also, like I said, let us know what you think about the early part of the season. Are things going well? Are you worried? Are you panicked? Like, what's on the scale of 0 to 10? Where are you at right now with the Baltimore Orioles? We'd love to hear from you. You can also email the show, thewarehousepod@gmail.com, and we'll try to respond to those on the show as well. But yeah, that's really all I've got. Thanks for supporting the show. Go to believe.com, BLEAV.com. Check us out there. Go to camdenchat.com and see what I'm writing there. I'm usually writing, 3 and 4 times a week. So check us out there. And yeah, that's really all I've got on this episode. So thanks so much. As I said earlier, my name is Tyler, and this has been the Warehouse Podcast. Take it easy.